Welcome back, everyone. For today's video, we are going to be taking a look at the finals of the winner's bracket in the American Cup. Now, those of you guys who are watching this recap, you might be wondering, where was the recap yesterday? Now, yesterday, I started off the first classical game with the white pieces against the former runner-up for the World Championship, Fabiano Caruana, and we had a very uneventful, short, and boring 15-move draw in the Catalan system. So it's such a short and quick game, I didn't really see the reason to do a recap, and as such, we're picking it up today on day number 2 of this match. Now, after drawing with the white piece in the first classical game, today I have the unenviable task of trying to hold with the black pieces against Fabiano and force a tiebreak. So let's jump right into the action. Game number 2, Fabiano is the white pieces. If I draw, we go to tiebreakers. If I win, I'm through. And if I lose, I am relegated to the loser's bracket. So Fabiano opens with e4, we get e5, knight f3, knight c6, and now we once again get the classic Gucci piano opening. Now, in this American Cup, there have been numerous games featuring this Gucci piano. These days, many players like the system primarily because it keeps all the pieces on the board. Now, for the last 600 years or so, the move bishop to b5, which is known as the Spanish or the Ruy Lopez, has been the preferred choice, but one of the things that people have realized is there are so many lines against us which equalize, and when you put the bishop on b5, it's on a diagonal, which is okay, but why not put the bishop on c4 where it targets this diagonal, which is much more relevant from the start. So I play knight f6, we get d3, bishop e7, and now we get the move knight c3. Now, of course, all the pieces remain on the board, and this is an important point to mention in top-level chess, which is that when pieces get traded very early, games tend to have a very drawish tendency, and it's much easier to play, and if you can just keep all the pieces on the board, start maneuvering, it's much easier to get a game which does not end immediately. So I play the bishop e7 line like I did against Lenier Dominguez in the last match. We get knight c3, d6, Fabiano plays a3, and here I castle my king. Now here Fabiano plays move bishop to e3 in his semifinal match against Levon Aronian, which he would win in tiebreakers. He would play his move bishop a2, bishop e6, and then the move knight to d5. So Fabiano mixes it up with bishop e3, I play the move bishop e6, and now we get the move knight d5. Now with this bishop on e7 here, what I'd really like to do is potentially trade the knight and open up some diagonals, but if I take with the knight here after pawn takes knight, suddenly my bishop and knight get forked and I lose material. So I play the move bishop to d7 with the idea that now, let's just say white goes queen e2, I can trade the horses, and if white takes with the juicer, I move the knight, and now my bishop is no longer getting forked by the pawn. So I go bishop d7. Now here Fabiano spends a bit of time before playing this move h4, 22 minutes in fact, and when Fabiano spent this time, I both felt relieved, but also concerned, because what this means is that I had surprised Fabiano. I had played a line that was not in his preparation, meaning that it was not the top computer line, and probably also a touch dubious. So Fabiano plays h4. Now let's take stock of something. When Fabiano played against Levon in his previous match, they reached this position with knight d5, a5, I think it was bishop e3, bishop d7, takes, and here Fabiano played the move h4 and went on to win. So I had an idea that Fabiano might play this move h4. The reason this move can be very dangerous is that it will provide a hook for the knight on g5, and white can try to attack on the king side. So here I trade the knights, and now I play the move bishop to e6. Now initially I wanted to play the move bishop to g4, trying to pin this knight so it can't jump to g5. But after queen d2, I was kind of scared about this position, because let's say I go a5, white can play h5 with the idea of h6. There's even knight g5 with f3 and g4. And already here it looks like a very dangerous position to play for black, especially when you don't have stockfish preparation. So I go bishop e6 here, trying to trade off this wooden shield on d5, and now Fabiano trades and goes knight g5. Here I play the move queen d7, guarding the pawn, and Fabiano plays queen g4, trying to further pressure the pawn on e6. Here I trade the bishop for the knight, and now I play the move g6. Now at this point, I had a feeling that I was probably a touch worse, but I actually liked my position from the standpoint that here it's very easy to play. Now, when I mean it's very easy to play, what I mean by that is, first of all, I have the idea of d5, building a big black center, and if white tries to go for the very dangerous idea like rook h6, rook f7 and castles, now I start to push my p on the queen side here, and if white lines up the legendary triple stack, I very commonly play rook g7, and my rook guards the pawns, queen is also guarding, and here I have a free hand on the queen side to start attacking the white king. So my ideas here are very simple, and from that standpoint, I was very happy because there simply is not a lot to think about. So Fabiano goes c3, now I play a5, and here he plays the move b3. Now I play the move b5, and Fabiano goes for d4, building his big white center. Now these pawn maneuvers are very difficult to understand, but if white were to try and play a move like d4 right away here, after takes in this position, I have the idea of going a4 and using this a5 square to access these juicy light squares where I will create a bastion for the knight. So that's why Fabiano plays b3 here, and I play b5, and now we get the move d4. If white were to try and play b4 here, this would actually be a serious mistake, because after takes, white cannot recapture the horse as you lose the rook. And if white were to try and play a4 after b4, c4, now there's a weakness on this d4 square. So Fabiano plays d4. I play a4, b4, and now I play this move d5, creating massive chaos in the center. You have a big white center, but you also have a big black center as well. Now, I actually like my position here for a couple of reasons. First and foremost is that white doesn't have an attack. The white king is still not castled, but also this dark square b cannot touch any of my pawns here. All these pawns are on the opposite color of the bishop, so in the long run, it feels like my position is pretty decent. So Fabiano decides to play rook d1, I go rook d8, we get to move castles, and now I trade on d4, and Fabiano recaptures with the bishop. Now, he could have taken with the pawn on d4 here, but had he done this after takes, and a move like knight e7, suddenly I'm getting a bastion on f5 or d5, and I already thought that in this position there are very, very good chances for me to claim the advantage with this great knight. Let's say rook c5, c6, rook c1, and rook c8 here, and this bishop cannot touch anything. Literally, all my pawns, my rook, my queen, and my king, and my knight are on the opposite color. This bishop is not targeting anything here. That's why Fabiano goes bishop takes pawn. I play e5, we get the swap, bishop c5, and now I play the move rook d8. Now, I did spend a lot of time here before taking. You'll notice that I have 43 minutes versus 15 because I wanted to use the time advantage and try to see if I could find something which wouldn't simplify, but ultimately, that's what I did. So we get this position after rook d8, Fabiano trades, plays rook c1, and now I play the move rook d3, and here we get the move c4. Now, I think that in this position, Fabiano thought there was serious danger that he could be worse, and when he goes c4 here, he's trying to trade off all the pawns on the queen side here, simplify the game immediately, but this is actually a very slight mistake. Now, here I played the move pawn takes pawn after a 5-minute think. This move is effectively offering a draw in a sense. I did consider the move knight to d4, which is the top move, but after takes, and rook d7 guarding the pawn, I thought after rook a1, let's just say king f7, rook e1, rook c3, and king f1, even though I have this passed d pawn here, I thought with the white king getting to the center, there's simply no way that I could be better. So I take instead. We get b5, knight d4, Fabiano takes, and now I sack the rook temporarily with the move rook to c3 here. We get takes, check, forking the king and the rook, king h2, knight takes rook, and now in this position, Fabiano plays the move rook c1. Now, Fabiano could have played the move b6, but after takes, and rook d1 here, white has to trade the towers, and if anybody is better in this endgame, it's going to be black, because once again, the pawns are on the opposite color of the bishop, and my knight can also target this pawn. So sample line is king g3, king f7, king here, let's say king e4, check, knight b5, bishop c5, king d5, bishop e7, e4, and king e3. Now, this endgame is apparently a draw according to the computer, but again, you see all of my pieces opposite color of the bishop. This is the last remaining force that white has here, and the bishop still cannot touch anything because everything is on the opposite color. So even though this is probably a draw, if you miscalculate it, you will lose the game, and that's why Fabiano makes a very good practical decision to play rook c1, dodging the trade of the towers. He gives up a pawn, but after rook c4, with all these weak pawn islands on e5, c7, and a4, it's simply not enough for me to prove an advantage. So I go rook d5. We got bishop e3, takes, knight b5, rook a8, and here I play the move king f7, Fabiano goes rook h8, and now I play the move king g7. Now, the computer thinks that I can play king e6 here, and after rook takes h7, apparently after rook d6 with the idea of king d5, like say you get this, rook guards the pawn, and now you have a free hand to start pushing p on the c file. Maybe black can create winning chances. Frankly, at this point in the game, I wasn't really feeling it. I didn't think it was a big advantage, so I decided to play king g7 instead. We get rook e8, and now I go c5. I could have gone back and made an instant repetition, but I figure in this position, one extra pawn, let's try to play on. So I go c5, we get rook c8, knight d4, Fabiano checks, I go back, he plays king g3, and now I play the move knight f5. Now, even though I have one extra pawn here with my king cut off by the kebab on the 7th rank here, there's simply not a whole lot that I can do. So I play knight f5, king f3, e4, takes, and now Fabiano very stylishly plays the move f4, guarding the pawn, and I cannot guard both the knight and the rook at the same time. So I go rook d2, we get takes, Fabiano takes, play rook g1, and now the game ends by repetition here with a draw after we play all these checks. So, second classical game, very, very solid draw for me. Perhaps there were one or two moments where I had a chance to play for more, but overall, I was never in any real danger in this game, and I was very, very happy with my play. So this means with 2 draws in the classical games, we now move to the dreaded blitz tiebreaker, 2 games of 3 minutes with a 2-second increment. Now, in the first game, I'm playing with the black pieces once again. Fabiano has white, and here he plays the move e4. So we get the classic Gucci piano, as usual. I play bishop e7, knight c3, d6, a3, castles, bishop e3, and I play bishop e6 once again. Now, in the loser's bracket, there was actually a game played between Samuel Sevian and Levon Aronian, which also featured this same position. So we get knight d5. Here I change it up with queen c8 instead of playing bishop d7, and now Fabiano goes bishop b3. Here I play the move bishop to d8, as I don't want white to capture my juicer, and now we get the move castles. Here I play the move bishop takes knight, we get takes, and I go knight to e7, trying to target the pawn on d5. Fabiano goes c4, I play knight f5, and now we get the move bishop d2, and here I play the move c6. Now, when I play this move c6, my initial intention after pawn takes pawn was to take with this pawn here, but as I realized instantly, white can go c5, undermining this pawn chain, and white has a nice advantage here with the 2 b's. So I take with the queen to stop the c5 idea. If white goes c5, I just take with the queen, and everything is still guarded. Fabiano goes rook c1, I play bishop b6 here, and now we get the move bishop a4, queen c7, and Fabiano plays b4, trying to play c5 and open up the c5. Here I go a5, Fabiano plays bishop g5, and now I take the pawn on b4, and Fabiano decides to play bishop takes knight. Now at this point, we've both used about 1 minute on the clock. We are getting the 2-second increment, but it's already a very critical situation where either you use a lot of time to try and prove an advantage immediately, or you try to play on the flow where you move in somewhere between 2 and 5 seconds. Ultimately, at this point, both of us are moving pretty quickly. We get this position here after pawn takes, and Fabiano obviously overlooks something, which is that if I were to take the move that I think he initially wanted to play was pawn takes pawn, but there's a really cool tactic, which I did see during the game, which is knight to e3 here, sacking the horse. The knight is forking the queen and the rook, and after takes, king h1, you take the rook on c1. If white takes the bishop, you lose this bishop. And after queen to h6, I was going to play rook a8, which maybe is a mistake here. Apparently, after knight g1, the game is equal. But I saw queen takes f6 and queen d8 here with the idea of rook to a1, trading off the towers and winning the game due to the advantage I have with a rook for a knight. So Fabiano spotted this, I think, as soon as he played bishop takes knight. And here he decides instead to play the move c5. And after takes, I play the move queen d6. Now here Fabiano makes a very serious error when he plays the move b5. Had he traded the pawns here and played something like bishop c2, white is still down a pawn here, but with my compromised kingside, these pawns stack, no coverage on the g-file, white is only marginally worse. Instead, Fabiano goes b5, and now I play rook d8 here, targeting the pawn on d3, and keeping this rook on the a-file to spy the bishop. Fabiano goes knight d2, and here I play the move knight d4. Now, while this may not be the best move here, I think this is probably the best move that I have played in the tournament so far from the standpoint that let's take stock of the time. I'm up 20 seconds in this game. I'm better here. I do not try to go for perfection where I go for like a 30 or 40 second think and play his move queen d3. Had I played this, white's moves actually become very obvious after queen g4. If I go king h8, there's bishop c2, and then queen f5 here. If I were to play knight g7, then there's knight to e4, pressuring the pawn, and all of a sudden there are all kinds of threats that I have to deal with. So I played the move knight d4, and this move is great because I create this huge bastion as well as a mini pyramid of Giza here with the pawns, and white's bishop now is simply dead. This knight is dominating the critical squares here, and now I have time to move my king out of the center, and at this point, I should probably win the game. So we get knight c4. I play queen e6, Fabi goes rook e1, and now I play the move bishop c7, and here we get the final blunder in my mind, which is the move rook to e3. Fabiano had to play the move b6 here because if I were to take, now there's, oh wow, there's a very shocking maneuver, bishop d7, which honestly I did not see at all. And if I take with the queen, there's knight b6 forking the rook and the queen. And if I take with the rook, this forks the rooks. And then if I take the knight, there's queen g4, creating the classic right triangle here. And white is actually better. Of course, I did not see this at all. So, Had Fabiano played b6, it would have been very interesting. I think there's a very high chance that I would have played this move and blundered bishop d7. But I think at this point, Fabiano also already realized he was much worse, and he plays this move rook to e3, trying to go for a desperado kingside attack. Now I play the move king h8, we get king h1, and now I play the move b6 here, stopping any idea of b6. And now with the pawns connected, bishop guarding everything, the rest is just technique. We get rook h3, rook g8, Fabi plays queen h5, and now I go queen to f5, guarding against the checkmate threat, but also forcing some material off the board as this bishop on a4 is still hanging. Fabi trades, goes bishop d1, knight d4 back to pressure the pawn, we get rook b1, and now I play the move rook a2. Now here I still have 1 minute on the clock versus 10 seconds. All my moves are very natural and easy, so this is just very simple. We get king g1, rook to a8 with the idea of rook to a1 to attack the bishop. We get king f1, rook a1, takes, king e1. I take the pawn on b5, king d2, go back to d4, and now I have 2 extra pawns here, so we get rook h6, b5, knight b2. I check the king, Fabi plays king e3, and now I go knight f5, forking the king and the rook and winning the game. So with this very, very smooth and controlled win in the first blitz game, I take the lead in the match by a score of 2-1. Now we go to the second blitz game here. This is a very simple situation. I have the white pieces. If I draw, I win the winner's bracket. If I lose, we go to another set of blitz tiebreakers. And of course, if I win, that's also good enough. So I need to draw or win. One result is not good, which is a loss. Everything else is Gucci. So I have the white pieces, and here I decide to play the move e4. Fabi goes c5, knight f3, and now he plays the move d6. Here I play d4, takes, knight f6, knight c3, and Fabiano decides to play the classic Najdorf Sicilian defense with a6. Here I play a4, Fabi goes b6. Now this move I knew had to be a little bit dubious, but in a blitz game, it's very hard to figure everything out on the fly, so I play this move bishop e2. Now the computer gives white a big edge after bishop c4, bishop b7, and I think this move bishop d5, and white's already doing very well. But again, just trying to play with the flow and not take too much time, I play bishop b2. We get bishop b7, bishop f3, knight bd7, and now I play the move knight d5. Fabiano goes e5, and here I play the move knight takes knight after a 1 minute think. Now, this is definitely not the way I wanted the game to go, but at this point, I think my time usage and actually my ability to reason and work out the best possible idea is very important here, because it'd be easy to play a move like knight b3, but after takes, and bishop e7, let's just say white castles and black castles. Black is doing very well in this position. You're pushing pawns in the center. White is not easily achieving an attack on the queen side, and this is a position where down on time, I probably lose every time. So I decide to sack a pawn here by trading the horses, putting my knife on f5, Fabiano takes, and now I castle my king. Fabiano plays move queen d7, and this is the first step in the wrong direction. Now, mind you, it's not an easy position for black to play. You're dealing with a pin. Knight on f5 is very well placed, but this is a moment where, had Fabiano played g6, black has a slight advantage. Instead, he goes queen d7. Now I play knight to e3 back. I don't want to hang the juicer. Fabiano plays d5, and now I go for the extremely explosive move c4, trying to rip open this diagonal, pressure the pawn on the knight, and at this point, I actually thought I was on my way to maybe even winning the game. Fabi goes d4, I play knight d5, he takes, and now he goes knight f6, and here I play the move rook e1, targeting the pawn. Fabiano plays bishop d6, and now I play the move bishop to f4, further undermining this pawn because the king is still in the middle of the board. Fabiano goes queen e7, I sack a bishop temporarily by taking, he takes, and now I have d6, creating the fossil as I target the queen and the rook at the same time. Fabiano takes, I take the rook, castles, bishop f3, and now he plays this move d3. Now, this move is an excellent move. I actually was expecting bishop takes h2, but after king to f1 and say bishop e5 here, white can go queen d3. The d-pawn is not getting pushed up the board here. White will eventually control both the c and the e files here, and at this point, white will win the game. But Fabiano correctly ignores the pawn on h2. He pushes his p with d3, and here I play this move rook to e3. Now, this move is not a blunder, but what I should have done is I should have sacked the rook with rook takes bishop, and after takes, and queen b2, I have rook b1, queen a2, and after rook takes b6, probably takes and rook takes a6 here, with only pawns on the king side and no ice skater checkmate on the back rank here. I will never lose this game at all. But instead I play rook e3, and here I overlook the move rook d8. I actually thought Fabi would play d2, and then I was going to sack the rook, because here the queen guards the pawn on b2. Lastly plays rook d8, I go rook a3, d2, and now I play this move rook to d3, which is simply a very, very bad decision. Now here I'm up 1 minute on the clock. This would be a perfect moment to take stock of the position, relax and figure it out. And I probably should have played the move g3 here. The reason this would have been a good choice is if black takes the pawn. After rook d3, takes in this position. Now I can play the move queen c2, attacking the bishop and the rook. If black were to take this bishop here, there's queen c8 with the ice skater checkmate. After queen takes knight, king gets stuck on the back rank. Now black here can still probably draw the game with rook d8, takes, queen takes, king here on b5. But again, a draw in this position is completely fine for me because I win the match. Instead, I play rook d3, and now Fabi is able to sack the queen for the 2 towers. And even though this position is probably still okay for me, black has his passed pawn 1 square away from queening, and now I have to be very careful to not lose the game. So I go queen c2, we get rook d8, g3, g6, b4, a5, takes, and now I play the move bishop b2. Fabiano goes king g7, I play h4, h5, and here I play the move king f1. Now, in this position, I am up nearly 40 seconds on the clock, and also what helps me a lot here is that I don't have much to think about. My only concern is stopping this pawn from queening here, so I'm going to start doing the shuffle with the bishop and the king, and if Fabiano finds a way to break through, so be it. So we get the move rook to d4. Now I play the move bishop d1, bishop d6, queen c3, rook d5, king g2. Fabiano gets his bishop to b4. It's a nice wooden shield here. Bishop is guarded by the pawn, bishop guards this one, and I can never dislodge the bishop. On the other hand, in this position, black still is struggling to remove my bishop, which is stopping this pawn from advancing, and there's still very good chances to draw the game. We get rook e5, queen d3, rook e1, bishop b3, rook e7, queen c4, knight e4, and now I play the move queen d4. Fabiano goes over, I play bishop c2, knight c5, and now I simply wait once again with bishop d1. We get rook d7, queen c4, knight e6, and here I play the move queen c6. Rook c7, queen e4, rook c1, queen f3, king g7, and now I play the move queen to e2. Now this move is apparently a losing blunder in the position because here black can play the shocking move king to f8, and now I have no way to stop this knight d4 move. If I move my bishop, there's knight d4, black takes the bishop and queens this pawn. If I go queen to f3 here, there's knight d4 once again. I go check, king g7, and this knight dominates the bishop. There are no squares available, and once again, I'm simply losing the game. But Fabiano plays bishop c3, very logical move to stop the check, and now I go bishop b3. Here, Fabiano blunders again with the move rook to e1. Apparently, knight to d4 is winning here, because after queen to e5, king to h7, if I take the pawn, black gets a queen and wins. Actually, apparently queen is a draw, I guess. Wait, black queens, there's bishop g8, and apparently this is still a draw here because I can basically just check this king forever. Of course, I saw none of this, neither did Fabiano. So I guess after the move bishop takes f7, black's supposed to play rook g1 check. And after king h3, there's check here, and then rook h2 check. If I go back, black queens, and if I take the rook, there's knight f3, forking the king and the queen, and winning the game. Again, computers are amazing, but with seconds on the clock, this is not realistic. So we get the move rook to e1. Here I play queen d3, bishop d4, queen d7, and now Fabiano plays rook e4. We do a little bit of a repetition here, where we get king g8, queen d7, and now Fabiano plays rook e4. I go queen c6, rook e2, queen d7, and we get the move rook to e5, and here I play the move queen d3. Now, I thought this position might already be a threefold repetition after bishop d1, but it's a very tough spot because if I try to make a claim to the arbiter and I'm wrong, I believe that Fabiano will get more time on his clock, and I simply will have no chance to defend this position if he gets an extra minute. So I play the move queen d3. Fabiano goes king g7, I play queen d7, we get rook e2, queen d3, rook e1, queen d7, and now we get the move rook e4. Here I play queen c6, not queen d5, because here black can play rook to d4 with the idea of pushing the pawn. So I go queen c6, we get knight c5, bishop d1, and now Fabiano plays rook e1. I go queen f3 back, guarding the bishop, and here we get the move king g8. I go bishop c2, and now Fabiano plays rook c1, bishop d1, and here he misses his opportunity when he plays move king g7. Now, in this position, Fabiano could have sacked the rook for the bishop, and after takes and knight d3, with the bishop guarding the pawn here after queen c... Actually, I should say queen e2, because queen c2, there's knight e1 here. After queen e2, black can go knight to b2, bishop guards the pawn, knight guards the square, and here black is winning the game. Fabiano instead plays king g7, I go queen e2, we get the move knight to d3, and now I play the move bishop b3. Now here, if black were to sack the rook for the bishop, it actually doesn't work, because after takes and knight d3, I go queen b3 here, and if black plays knight b2, I take with check, and if black can't go to h7 because the pawn is hanging, and after king to g8, now I can take the knight, and the queen stops the pawn. So Fabiano plays knight d3. I go bishop b3. We get the move knight to e1. And now I play the move king h3. Now at this point, I'm lucky because Fabiano has put this knight on e1 where it's simply out of play completely. The knight cannot jump to these squares. And now the bishop and the queen can line up some very effective threats towards this pawn on f7. Get rook c5. I play queen e7, which is also a mistake, by the way. We get rook f5, queen e2, knight f3. And here I play the move queen e3. Now, the move that I should have played here was the move queen to d3 here. The reason this move is better is that after I go queen e3, Fabiano has the move bishop to c5, pressuring this pawn on f2. The knight guards the other pawn, and after queen c3 and king h7, apparently I should go king g2, knight d4. Maybe it still goes on. Bishop d1, there's knight e2. So many lines here that work out, but frankly, just very hard for a human to play. So I go queen e3. Fabiano now plays move rook f6, and here I go bishop to d1. Fabiano plays knight e1, and now I find the very important move queen to d4, and suddenly all of black's pieces are stuck. The knight on e1 has no squares available. f3, d3, c2, and g2 are all covered by the bishop and the queen. If the bishop moves away, then I can take the pawn. So black can't move either the bishop or the knight. The rook is also pinned, so you can't move the king without losing the rook. So all Fabiano can do here is play bishop e7. I take, bishop b4, queen d4, bishop e7. And here I decide to make a draw with the move queen c3. We get the repetition here, and the reason I make the repetition versus playing on is simply that a draw is good enough to win the match. There is no need to go for more. If I go for more and make a blunder, then I'm going to feel like a complete idiot, and a draw means that I win the bracket. So I make the repetition very wisely here. The game ends in a draw. With this draw, it means that I am now the winner of the Champions Bracket in the American Cup. It does not mean that I've won the tournament, but what it means is that whoever comes out of the loser's bracket, either Fabiano Caruana or Levon Aronian, will have to defeat me twice in order to win the tournament. Now, in 2023, I was in the same situation where I played Wesley. We drew both of our classical games in the final match, but I would lose the tiebreaker, which meant that I had to come back the next day and play a second match against Wesley, which ultimately I would win to win the title in 2023. So it's not over yet, but at least whether I play Levon or Fabiano, they will have to beat me 2 times in order to win this tournament. So I'm all but guaranteed at least second place, and I feel very good about the result. So, very topsy-turvy day, but I get the win in this match. Very, very important to stay in the top half of the bracket. This means that tomorrow I will get a rest date, but I will obviously eagerly watch the match between Fabiano and Levon to see who I face in the final match. At any rate, it's great to get a win. It's great to fill the way that I do at the moment. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this recap. It might be a little bit long or a little bit windy at times, but I hope you guys have enjoyed this recap. If you are not already subscribed to the channel, make sure that you smash that subscribe button below, and we'll be back with a recap after I play the final match against Fabiano or Levon starting in 2 days. See you guys soon, and have a great rest of your evening. Bye!